Okay, friends, I'm Hardy Quest with Chapel Hill Quest Martial Arts and the Ninja Everyday, and I'm joined today by Yakov Schact. Yakov, welcome to the Ninja Everyday, whatever this is. It's not really a
Thank you very much.
podcast. Yeah. Could you tell us a little bit about your training history and a little bit about yourself?
Okay, I started basically at age 15, 16. Um, in the beginning in Germany was a very interesting situation because nobody really knew much about ninjutsu. Everybody knew the books of Stephen Hayes, of course, and people went abroad for seminars, came back, started teaching, and the particular school I trained in, they did ninjutsu, eskrima, and Thai boxing and kung fu, and they weren't really happy with the people they invited, because not that they were bad people or unskilled people. They just didn't knew that much about ninjutsu because it was like brand new, and going to America twice or three times didn't make you, uh, I guess by nowadays standard, a proficient black belt.
Sure.
And I fell in love with it. I was the martial arts training. I played chess before. I was kind of a nerd, and still play chess. And I went with my cousin, first grade cousin. We went for the first lesson, and it was like 2 hours ninjutsu, 2 hours kung fu, and 1 hour Thai box. It was like 5 hours training, and they kind of butchered us. And we sat in the bus back home. I still remember that. And he looked at me. He said, "So honestly, what do you think?" And I said, "I love it. I want to go back tomorrow." And he said, "I'm never even go to that part of town again." And he never did. And I fell in love with it. And then at one point, this particular school invited Moshe Castile, who was probably the first real black belt that, in my opinion, back then in Germany, taught, and everybody was like blown away. Like, this is how it could be. This is wow. This is ninjutsu we never knew, and I grew up in it was a very competitive environment, which was hard to learn in one way and also good to learn in one way, because you came back with, let's say, a green belt, and immediately people say, you have a green belt, so let's see how you fight or whatever. So you always had to kind of prove yourself somehow.
That sounds not like a typical ninjutsu experience to me in terms of like being a competitive environment. Can you speak a little bit more to that?
um, it was very hard because it's back then I didn't understood that martial arts are actually, it's just like a general word for, it means different things, and you come from a, let's say, self-defense oriented mindset or a beginner mindset, and then you spar with a boxer, so he just beats you up. So you understand, just standing there in Ichimonji waiting for him to hit you, it won't fly. So you got to adapt to the situation. And the more often you do, the better you perform, the more you find out, you know, how to make your art work. It was a painful process, but it led to something. And I remember also when Moshe Castile taught the first seminar, there were people like kind of challenging him. He said, like, what would be if I really hit you, like strong? He said, do, try. And then he did Goshadori and Mushadori and one guy. And he didn't know how strong he would be hitting, or with which hand he would be hitting. And we were, wow, this is how ninjutsu could look like. So I loved it even more. Honestly, I fell in love with the art so much through the books of Stephen, um, that I was. It took me a few years to lose the pink glasses, the falling in love glasses. I was. It was only ninjutsu. It doesn't matter what else you did. Nowadays, I see that basically every art has its beauty and has a lot to offer. But back then, I said it's all bullshit. It's only ninjutsu. So, kind of. I guess it's kind of a idiotic mindset, but as a beginner, it can help you to, because you're proud of what you do, you love what you do, so you dive in all the way. I always believed in immersion, in like going in all the way. And for me, this was all I ever wanted. You gotta understand, I come from a point. I remember when I was still playing chess. Um, I used to go to like a department store, like a shopping center, and I still remember standing there as a child, didn't have the money, when you're 12 or something, and looked at the books from Stephen. I said, one day I'm going to buy them. And then, like 3 years later, a friend of mine took me to the first lesson, and I saw Ninjutsu, and then I bought the books, and so this was kind of what I always wanted to do. So it was, and it's still kind of a love relationship.
What year was this?
19 end of 85, beginning of 86.
So I feel like what I see and what I hear about that time, sort of pre-rise of mixed martial arts, is that in a lot of people's experience, the ninjutsu training back then was a lot like sort of mixed martial arts. It was punching and kicking and throwing, and the sparring was multi-dimensional, sometimes involving weapons and things like that. Was that your experience, and do you think that was specific to the time, or do you think it was specific to like where and who you were training with?
I guess I would like to answer yes to all of it somehow. It's funny. I think it's like time and place related. And as, let's say, as old cats as we are in the art, you always got to be careful, because when you speak about the good old days, the good old days always have been the bad new days for somebody else.
That's right.
That's right. And then an old friend of mine, he's actually a brilliant teacher in Kung Fu. He once told me, he said, maybe we just mind fuck ourselves, because we think back then it was so much harder because we were softer, and then we experienced it, or it felt so hard to us, or so tough to us, and then we became tougher. And once we toughen up, it became less. And we have the feeling that nowadays what people do is less, but maybe they feel the same way. So I'm not sure training was always tougher. So this is the objective part in me. And if we swipe that away, and if I just speak straight from the heart, I think we were much tougher back then. I remember back in the days, even that once my teacher, she called my mom and asked if there's any like abusive situation in the house going on from all the marks, that you had from the training, from the stick. We like, if you would come late for class, you had to do push-ups. If you didn't do them, you got hit with a bamboo stick. If you did exercise like standing in the lower ichimonji for like 10 minutes or something, if you came up, you got hit with a bamboo stick, and the whole class started from zero. You had to do it again. So there was always, like, I guess, more pain, more toughness involved. And as romantic as it sounds, speaking about it back in the days, I'm not sure it was needed. And maybe it was needed for you or me, or for us as people, or character-wise. But I'm not sure it was needed. I kind of started to become way more successful as a teacher when an old friend of mine that used to practice with me, he came back with a list, like who was back then in the training. There's 30 names. And I said, wow, this is so cool. Let's reconnect with the people. So I called them all up. Most of them, of course, had new numbers, and you got them the mom, and they got a new number. You had to call the authorities and ask for the number change. And they all, honestly, back then when we started to teach as kind of co-trainers, they were all way better than we are. We were just more motivated or more into it. And that's why they accepted us. And most of them were even like at least same age, if not older, and probably way mature anyhow. So I asked them, so why did you stop at one point? And they all gave the same answer. That, always, blue eye, sitting in the office, or knocked out teeth, or kicking the balls, or always the scratches, always the pain. In the end of the conversation, in the evening, we met in a nice sushi place, and we discussed, he wanted to hear what came out of my idea to call everybody. And he said initially as a joke, he said, yeah, they're all too soft, that's why they stopped. I said, no, just think about it. This is so sad. Martial art was designed for people who are less skilled, less strong, less aggressive or decisive, or with less emotional regulation, or however you want to call it, like less aggressive people in general, who want to learn to defend themselves or their loved ones. And if you create a training in a way that they can't do that, we are not helping anybody. We're fooling ourselves. This is not how it's just so we can say only the tough ones survive. It's usually you train the bully to become more efficient. And so we have to change it. This is not a way. I mean, imagine you go to a driving teacher, the first driving lesson, and he would blind your eyes, or play with the steering wheel, or put the handbrakes or something. You would get frustrated, and you would lose the fun, and you in the end you end up not knowing how to drive a car. And that's what we were all doing back in the days. That's what I feel. I said, we have to change it. It's like, if you have pain, you go to a doctor's office. Look, I used to, as you see with the books, I used to run a clinic in a school for osteopathic and Chinese medicine in Germany. Nobody cares about all your diplomas, or if your teacher is better than the other one, or you learned in America or England. They don't care. They have pain. Can you help me? And the same is like, people come for for martial arts. They either like it in general, or they had a situation that scared them, or they saw a movie and they want to be like that. They have dreams and fears, and they want you to help them fulfill those dreams, or get them ready to conquer their fears. And if we design the training in a way that it fulfills our need to feel strong or tough or special, but thereby we fail the student, I think it was a mistake being so tough back then from the start.
So speaking of teachers and the importance of teaching, could you tell us a little bit about your teacher? You've mentioned this Moshe Castile, and then who did he learn from? Honestly, the first time I ever heard of this Mr. Castile was through your book, which we haven't even talked about yet, which is coming up. But yeah, could you tell us a little bit about your lineage and where your knowledge came from?
Look, it starts probably with the first people going to Japan and learning ninjutsu, and I heard different names from different sources. Interestingly for me, somebody said the first one actually there was a German policeman who by accident found Hatsumi's dojo and trained there for a few weeks, and then somehow word got around a little bit. And there's one famous martial arts author. I think I hope he's still alive. I think he lives in Hawaii. I think his name is Don Draeger, if I don't mix it up. And Don Draeger, I think he was a friend and teacher of Danny Waxman. Okay. And Danny Waxman, he went to learn Zen and judo in Japan. Kind of escaped the hectic life of Israel, and he was always into that. And Mr. Draeger told him, you want to see a crazy dojo, a place where it's not like a formal dojo. It's people just go crazy. They really fight. They really go at it. You should see it. And Danny was a very handsome, very strong, very brave man. He said, I want to take a look at it. And he told me, he said, they killed me, but I loved it. So, and then I'm not sure they were close friends, but he kind of knew Doron Navon from the Kodokan in Japan, from the judo, and he told him the same story. It's like amazing thing, you got to see it. And Doron fell even more in love with it. And all of a sudden, somebody comes to your dojo who's a foreigner and kind of loves what you do even more than anybody else. So I guess they had kind of like a father-son relationship there going on, and Doron really exceeded in ninjutsu in amazing ways. And but he was a basically Olympian level judoka, and I think he did some boxing and Thai boxing. He was a very strong man, and then experienced Hatsumi back in the days when the training was way different than it's nowadays. Less playful. And so he, at one point, he felt he gotta go back to Israel. There was always some wars going on. We have some interesting neighbors with very nice and very beautiful people, but governments that don't like us so much. Let's put it this way. We're gonna give credit to one Israeli student of his, Ilan Gatenu, who wrote an amazingly beautiful article, I think, in American Martial Arts magazine about that time. Hatsumi kind of prepared him for the situation. And in my opinion, this is nothing that anybody ever really verified, but in my opinion, I think the reason why he succeeded so much in Israel with the ninjutsu, because if you look at judo, karate, or even most kung fu styles and aikido, do means way. It also, it's like dogma, it's very formative. And jitsu is art, it's free. These people, culture-wise, understand freedom different from what you and I, the way we grew up in a Western society. But Israel is like this Middle East. You know, when people hear freedom, it's even more than for a German kid or American kid. So the people really jumped into that art, like all in. And for some reason, he had an amazing pool of talents. I believe it's probably, I mean, none of us knows all the martial arts schools or all the dojos in the world from Ninjutsu, but I can believe it's probably because I know most of the guys from the group who became black belt, Tai Sabaki wise, movement wise, fighting spirit wise, skill wise. This is probably the biggest amount of people ever in one dojo from the talent. It's just like amazing people, really amazing people. And at one point he felt he wanted to go back to Japan, and then there was some letter exchange, I understand, I think with Ishizuka Sensei, telling him that brace yourself, ninjutsu change. Sensei is teaching different. Everything is soft, no more hurting, no more pain. And I guess Doron took it as a joke, but when he went there first time, he said, "Wow, this is really different." And as I understand from Stephen Hayes, from the conversations that I had with him, he was, I think, more present in that time when that change took place while Doron was away. Hayes came, I think, in the, I think he met Danny and Doron, but they were already leaving when he came, so they probably had some time together. So I think the what the Israelis call the explosion of creativity that happened in Sensei's teaching, I think Stephen Hayes got the better of it, because he had both. He had the tough training and the fighting and the killing oriented, like the real warrior style, and the explosion of creativity. That's why he's also, I believe, the most valuable person in the whole game, because Doron never had, I don't know, I guess never had a tooth for marketing, or never wanted to make it that big or bring it outside. And Stephen was a natural talent of teaching and had this drive and strive in him to bring ninjutsu into the world. As we said in the beginning, before we start the conversation, neither of us, as probably most people ever watching the video, wouldn't be here without Stephen, I guess.
Sure.
And I personally believe that you and I, as everybody's doing ninjutsu as much as Hatsumi Sensei, we owe him thanks and respect for that, because without him, ninjutsu would not be where it's now. No way.